Welcome to Rebound Detroit, and thank you for joining us again. Today we are really humbled and honored to have with us a leader who has been an associate for Michigan and Detroit and pushing its investment portfolio in and around the state and the city. We are talking about Jim Tensilo in West Michigan. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for having me.
And by the way, he's the director for Invest Michigan, so we are really excited to know his opinion on investments coming in Michigan and particularly Detroit. So, what is Detroit for you, and what has been your passion after you came from a different state? Tell us more about your background and how has been your approach towards Detroit.
Yeah, so I came from Chicago originally about 3 years ago, looking to get into early stage investing. I'm very passionate about early stage startups and tech in particular. And what brought me here, my wife is from the area, so I was looking to get into early stage investing and also staying in the Midwest. So I'd been to Detroit a number of times in the Ann Arbor area, so I really enjoyed the area. I saw kind of this excitement at the early stage, and just the amount of growth I've seen over the past 3 years, and it's particularly in Detroit, has been fun to watch. It's kind of like a startup in itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know you have got an entrepreneurial passion,
Yeah.
but you have been an entrepreneur too.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen that certain areas of Detroit, Ann Arbor, and downtown Detroit is quite being a magnetic place for attracting new startups. And you have been a part of the startup community for a long time now, from being a Chicagoan to a new Detroiter and a native Detroiter.
Yeah.
So what is your perspective on startup challenges faced in Detroit?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest startups is the lack of capital. We're an investment fund that funds early stage startups, but we're just one fund, and then there's also Invest Detroit Ventures that funds early stage startups. But outside of that, the amount of funding available for startups that haven't quite reached their Series A or $1 million in revenue, for instance, has been a big challenge for startups. But with every challenge comes opportunity. So you're starting to see startups that are more scrappy and able to stretch their dollar a little bit farther. So it creates investment opportunities, but at the same time, it's a challenge for startups. And then I would say the another challenge is finding the appropriate talent, particularly for early stage tech startups. A lot of professionals that just graduate college go out to the Valley to work, and there's a lot of opportunities here in Detroit. So being able to keep all these talented professionals locally has been a challenge. But I'd say at the state level, you're starting to see talent initiatives and a lot of people working to keep talented people from the brain drain, as they call it.
Definitely, and I've also seen that talent has been a buzzword in the industry, and everybody's talking about talent, of how we can not only attract but retain the existing talent in and around different parts of Detroit.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. But Detroit has pretty diverse portfolio in terms of investments. If you see, there are a lot of industries, automotive being the focus, medical equipment being a sister focus on it. So which markets do you feel can actually give a push to Detroit's investment portfolio for the startups and for the small and medium enterprises?
Yeah, we're actually, so outside of those areas, which I agree, automotive, Detroit is uniquely positioned to capitalize. It's been a strength for decades. Medical device, as you mentioned, is another hot area. But some of the more emerging markets that we're seeing, it's a lot of startup activity. Fintech is a big market that we're starting to see a lot of activity in. And some of that might be attributed to Quicken Loans, I think. Dan Gilbert's done a great job of investing in Detroit. And I think you're starting to see a lot of financial talent in the Southeast Michigan area. There's going to be a fintech incubator starting up sometime in 2019 in downtown Detroit. And we're seeing we have a number of startups in our portfolio in fintech. So, as these startups grow and mature, you'll get professionals trained in that industry, and then hopefully they'll go on and start their own companies in that industry as well.
Okay. And Detroit has been uniquely positioned globally in terms of its demographic and strategic advantage for being closer to the upcoming cities of 2030, like Chicago. Chicago is one of the top cities of 2030 in terms of attracting talent, producing technology, and revenue.
Yeah.
So, do you think that any kind of tweak in the ecosystem can bring a tipping point for Detroit's rebound with this investment ecosystem?
Yeah, I would say some of the strengths of the Detroit, Southeast Michigan area is the cost of living is a lot lower than it would be, in comparing to Chicago or some of the larger cities. Also, you've got the research corridor of University of Michigan, Wayne State, and Michigan State. So you've got all the talent, all the infrastructure in place. One thing I think that would bolster the ecosystem is kind of being able to tie Detroit and Ann Arbor together, because they're both very talented cities, and they're both, for lack of a better term, kind of siloed right now. So finding ways to break down the barrier and getting these cities to collaborate more, making it easier to get from one city to another would be a good start. And you're starting to see companies like Duo Security. They started in Ann Arbor, but opened up a Detroit office. So if we can get more companies to, if they have the means to be able to open a Detroit office and an Ann Arbor office and really try to connect these communities together, I think it'll strengthen the region quite a bit.
Okay, and we've seen that Detroit has been a bedrock for creating new innovative technologies for the benefit of the community, for the city, and for the state of Michigan. Do you see any global startups coming up in Detroit who have been actively contributing to new technologies which have helped Detroit rebound and which can accelerate Detroit rebound?
Yeah, I would say the Quicken Loans family of companies have really helped. They've really been kind of the major catalyst in helping Detroit's rebound. And then you also have some of the automotive companies that are contributing to innovation. So Ford purchased the train station in downtown Detroit. So some of these larger companies that are committing themselves to innovation, I think will really spur the region.
So I hope you had a great trip to Grand Rapids, and welcome back to Detroit again.
Yeah, thank you.
It was really great knowing about your investment opinion for Detroit, and we hopefully see you as a great leader, and you are already a great leader, but
thank you.
A catalyst in improving Detroit's investment portfolio.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and thank you for having me.
Thank
you for having me.
Let's make Detroit the bedrock for global investments and make it happen right here. Thank you.